Hey, everybody, this is Dr. Paul Thomas with Startup DPC, and I have a very special guest today, Dr. Chad Savage, and he's working so diligently with DPC Action. They fly to and from DC to advocate on our behalf, us DPC doctors, to change the legislation around direct primary care. And he's very kind to give us our time and share about what he's up to. So, Dr. Savage, what's up, man? Great to see
Hey,
you.
Paul, how are you, buddy? Hey, I appreciate everything you're doing, my friend. It's kind of funny for the DPC community to have, we're kind of the old school guys now. You know, I've known you for at least like 3-4 years, which in DPC circles, that's ancient times.
I know, eons and eons ago, back
I
in
know.
2016. Geez.
Back when there were only like a couple of us, and now, what do you know, man? Huge number. So good to see you, my friend, and congratulations on all you're doing in Detroit and your partner, and you guys are doing amazing stuff. You've got incredible interest. You've got the mayor was at your office or something, isn't that right?
Yeah, we did it. We had a ribbon cutting with Mayor Duggan, Detroit Mayor Duggan, Mike Duggan. He came by. It was amazing. It was just like he was in our building for 20 minutes checking out our office, but he had enough time to cut the ribbon, and it was kind of a special moment. Had a lot of patience and people come through in the community. So we had a
Wow,
lot of fun with that, man.
that's awesome, man. Increasing the awareness and doing amazing stuff. So good job to you, my friend.
Yeah, thank you. But, people are dying to know. Let's start with this. What is DPC Action and why should we care?
Yep. So as you know, there are several kind of political advocacy groups out there, if I can say
Mhm.
it that way, and all of them are good and pushing in a certain direction, but there really weren't any that specifically were focusing on the independent direct primary care practice. So a lot of them, you have to have funding to do this kind of stuff. So most of them are funded by corporations and such that are trying to kind of build on the backbone of the DPC model for their
Right.
own corporate interests. And there's nothing wrong with that per se. And some of them are doing good things. However, you're an independent DPC, I'm an independent DPC, all of our board members are independent DPCs. And we found that there really wasn't anybody kind of speaking for, if you will, the little guy. And in reality, the totality of the DPC movement is a bunch of little guys primarily.
Yep.
So we largely self-fund, though we are more than happy to take contributions and defer some of our costs. Anybody wants to help us out, please do. To go and try to
And they
make
can do that on the website, right? You can go to DPC Action and contribute some money, $20, $100, whatever you want to do.
Yep, dpcaction.com. You can do it as one time or recurring, and of course, we're much obliged to anybody who can help us out. We, myself personally, each trip is $600, $700, $800 in airfare, and then I close my practice down for a day. And
Sure.
the hope is that we're going to make an impact and get the legislation so that it's favorable to what we're doing. I mean, as you know, we have to have a value add. We have to be valuable
Mhm.
enough for those patients to spend their money on us, which is a tall task and expects the best of us, which is a good kind of incentive for us to have. But we have to go against a lot of headwinds to achieve that. The current coverage products from insurers aren't usually designed in a way that's conducive to direct primary care.
Hmm.
There's some question about HSA usage with direct primary care, and we're trying to get every hurdle, every obstacle out of the way, so that activation energy is as low as possible, so DPCs can flourish.
Awesome. And tell me more about the DPC Action Board. I know Dr. Josh Umber is there, Dr. Lee Gross is there, and then there's a few others, correct?
Yep, Kat Lindley and Kim Korba, so just a dedicated little group of renegades.
Right. And then you guys fly out there and then you engage with legislators. Who are the people that you're trying to engage with the most?
Well, at all levels, really, because to get legislation through, you need both chambers of Congress and you need the White House to sign off on whatever they do. So we make trips designated for congressional visits. We do trips designated for senatorial visits, and we're blessed enough to have trips where we actually make we've made contacts with the White House as well, so that hopefully, if anything gets through both chambers of Congress, that we can hopefully have it signed into law and enacted.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, I saw you on the White House grounds. I think you had a picture with Kellyanne Conway or something like that. You guys took
Yeah,
a
yeah.
selfie together.
Yeah, it's a selfie. You know, people like, oh yeah, you guys go to dinner together. You guys know each other. It's like, no, no,
No, we just had time for a
but fun.
selfie.
It's totally, it's a lot of fun. That's the positive aspect of it. The fun aspect. The funny thing is, most of our trips aren't fun. We're going and talking with the
Sure.
Treasury and IRS attorneys. The very first trip we made out there actually was, you know, I'm coming in. I'm naive to this stuff. I've never done political things before to that level. And to fly into DC and have a meeting, the very first one was at a meeting at the Treasury with one of the Secretary of the Treasury, and we had, I don't remember the exact number, but like about 10 IRS attorneys on a conference call and some in the room, and trust me, they weren't pleasant. I was thinking we'd come in, we'd describe what we're doing, they'd be thrilled, they'd immediately say, oh, well, yes, let's make sure we get all these bumps out of the way and be conducive to you guys. You guys are just entrepreneurial, and this is something we can get behind. Not at all. They were adversarial, to say the least. But that bore fruit. I believe those kind of meetings assisted with the executive order signing last year, where they included DPC and are trying to make it an HSA qualified expense, which is a huge win when that comes out. And I'm under the impression that final ruling should come out any day now. And I like to think that had a role in it. And I think our invitation to the signing of that executive order actually probably suggests that we did have some role in it. So
it's amazing that you went there and then you were invited to the signing, which is incredible. I'm talking with Dr. Chad Savage. He's a direct primary care doctor just like us. He started YourChoice Direct Care in Brighton, Michigan. He's about 45 minutes away from me here in Detroit. He's a good friend of mine, and he's working on the legislative side of making direct primary care practice easier for us independent doctors. So my next question is, Dr. Savage, what is the bill that you're working on right now? How are you trying to make an impact right now?
Yep. So there's three mainly DPC related bills out there right now, and I'll use their senatorial numbers. So there's S-2999, which is a reiteration of bill that's kind of gone through the wash several years over. Started out actually as a really good bill. I believe it started on the House side as HR 365. I believe Phil Eskew may have been the one who wrote it. Very short, very simple, resolves the issues with HSA. But sadly, over a couple of years' time, each time they would reintroduce it, new things were put on, and there's scoring reasons and all these weird political mumbo jumbo as to why they changed it the way they did. But with each iteration, it became less and less advantageous to DPC and started to put weird restrictions on, some of which are controversial as to whether they would do what we believe they would do. But once it goes to the regulatory agencies, there's no telling what they could do with that language if it's not very, very precise. So then there's two other bills out there, which I think are a real improvement on what that bill was initially trying to achieve. And that's S-12, and that's a bill that addresses HSAs and fixes. There's two aspects to the HSA issue. There's a 213 and a 223. 213 of the IRS code, not to get too boring, but basically says that we're a qualified expense. You can use it for HSAs. 223 is the insurance side, which says we're not a health plan. Those are the two things you need legislatively to essentially permanently fix that issue. The problem with the old bill, the S-2999, was that under one interpretation, it would fix it under the 223, but not the 213. Why that's important is under HSAs, you can't have a secondary health plan and contribute to an HSA.
Right.
So now you have your primary insurance. They now treat us as a qualified insurance plan or plan. So basically they're still saying that we're a plan, which means you couldn't contribute to the HSA that you can now use to pay for us, which doesn't make any sense. So the other two bills, one is S-12 and the other is S-3112, both fully resolve that. They clearly state we are a 213 qualified expense, and under the 223 part of the code say we are not a plan. And that's really very, very important. And then they go further because, you really want the environment to be as conducive to direct primary care as possible. And you don't want to have double payment situations. Right now, as I was saying, a lot of people pay for their insurance product, which theoretically pays for primary care. and then pays us separately. So it's a double payment. And it's most DPC docs on this podcast probably have had patients before who go, "Doc, I've had you for a couple of years, love you, but I got insurance now, or I changed insurance and I don't need it anymore." And
Right.
that just rips my heart out, because and I'm not mad at that person. They're doing what's in their economic best interest, but they should have options that fully are conducive to us, where they're paying less. They don't have to have that double payment. They pay less for the insurance, and then they can have us with it, and it actually is cheaper in the aggregate. So we're on a level playing field with our insurance-based colleagues. So that those bills look to open that up. And S3112 is, which is, I'll just say Cruz's bill. Okay, that'll be easier. Cruz's bill.
As in Ted Cruz?
Ted Cruz, yes. Former candidate for president.
And senator from Texas, right?
You got it. His bill is really innovative, will really change our healthcare system, because it allows for HSAs to be used to purchase coverage. Which right now many people have to get their coverage through an employer because they get it pre-tax if they get it in an employee relationship.
That's correct.
Creates a lot of weird situations where now you can get job lock. You can be stuck in a job because if you move jobs, you lose that insurance product. It creates the pre-existing condition issue, because with changing insurances a lot, if you get sick in your prior job with that insurance, now you switch, you want to buy your own insurance, you now have a pre-existing condition. So by using an HSA, which is pre-tax, to buy insurance, which you can do under that bill, you now own it yourself. You can own it over time. So the pre-existing issue largely goes away if you buy it at a young age and maintain it over time. And you get it on a pre-tax basis. So you don't have to get it through your employer to get that advantage.
Right.
So,
and then perhaps your employer maybe save some money there because they don't have to buy your health insurance, and maybe they can raise your wages or something like this.
Amen. Yep. Yeah. So it gets them out of your business. So you have the plan that you want, not what your employer wants.
Right.
It decreases their HR costs. They don't have to have all this massive HR staff to try to manage your health plan. You can go out and pick whatever you want. And it also allows for a broader range of coverage products. So health sharing, which tends to be pretty conducive with direct primary care, short-term limited duration plans, indemnity plans. It basically blows the coverage market wide open, where the legacy insurance products, Blue Cross Blue Shield and the others, almost have near monopoly power. And it allows for competitors to come and compete with the legacy insurers, which should drive down insurance costs. They can create products that are compatible with direct primary care. You can do it all on a pre-tax basis, and it fixes the IRS issue. So it's really compelling. S12, which is Rubio's bill, it doesn't quite go as far, but is also a good bill and does solve the DPC IRS issue for us. It doesn't allow that flexibility in the coverage products, but it does eliminate the need to get it through an employer as well. So it does a lot of good stuff, just not quite as far as Cruz's goes.
Yeah. Let me just interject here and just describe some of the challenges. I think we kind of skipped over this part, but it's really important to this conversation that we're talking about. The challenge here is that the legislation is murky on HSAs and using HSAs for direct primary care practices, because from some perspectives, an HSA paying for a DPC practice would be like paying for a quote unquote insurance plan, even though we know that direct primary care is not insurance, it's health care. And then the other part of this is like when you buy an insurance plan, from a patient perspective, they're buying health insurance, which often includes primary care services at some level of coverage. But we would say, these are two separate entities. Health insurance is completely different than health care. You need that health insurance that you buy perhaps through your employer or on the marketplace, but you also need excellent health care services is what we offer in our DPC practices, especially our independent DPC practices. So I just thought that was a useful context for people who are watching this or listening to this.
Absolutely. Yeah, sometimes we jump in and we know something, so we assume every viewer knows it, but that's not the case. So thank you for clarifying.
Hey, no problem, man. And so if these were to go through, let's say, what's your timeline on getting these through? Or are these likely or possible, or What's
Well,
it's really tough with this legislation as
yeah, it's pretty tough right now. It's
yeah.
it's an antagonistic political environment, which is too bad. So we really need support from both sides. And the problem is when you start dropping names, like I mentioned, Rubio and Cruz and some of the others, and once you put names attached to them, people will not support even quality legislation because of a name. And
Right.
And in reality, if you're talking from political strategy standpoint, if it's a good policy, and I really believe 3112 is exceedingly good policy, that the best way to neutralize it as a political advantage is to support it too. So we really could use support from both sides, because no longer then can one side claim it as their great achievement. Well, both sides are supporting it. Therefore, it's just a thing. It's not one side or the other.
So like if you got a Democratic senator who was co-sponsoring that bill, that would be tremendous.
Oh, yeah, it'd be colossal. It'd be wonderful.
Right. And I think we should lay this out here too. Foremost, I'm a physician, and I really don't talk politics because, I feel like it alienates a lot of people. Yeah. But, this is what makes this problem in our healthcare system so messy, is what Dr. Savage is saying. It's like, even if you have a good bill, it might be attached to a Republican or a Democrat or whatever, and then the other side will not want to support that because it doesn't look like good politics, quote unquote. So that's where the legislative advocacy comes in. And I know as a part of the AFP, American Academy of Family Physicians Direct Primary Care Summit, I think it was 2017, we all went to DC, and I sat down with all of our senators, and I really tried to clarify, like, this is not concierge medicine. This is me helping my community members in my community. And when I phrase it like that, it was kind of like a light bulb went on, or a switch was flipped, where my senators understood kind of what I was doing to a degree. Probably not fully, but they understood that this wasn't concierge medicine, that we were really taking care of regular people. And we need to do that in order to make this work. It can't move forward without us making contact and pushing forward on these issues.
Yeah, in a bipartisan basis, because DPC is not a partisan movement.
Right.
We've got people of every ideologic ilk in this movement, and legislation that helps us all. And so it's a nonpartisan movement. It'd be wonderful to have nonpartisan legislation that solves the issues and puts us on a level playing field with our insurance company compatriots.
Exactly. And, it's worth saying, there's 1,200 doctors doing this across the country. We're in 49 states. We're in every income bracket community possible. We're in low-income communities, high-income communities, middle-income communities. We're in the suburbs. We're in cities. We're in urban areas. We're in rural areas, farmland, et cetera. Talking to people who've started practices in towns of, 5,000, 6,000 people, making an impact in those kind of communities. So, and here we are in Detroit,
Yeah, what's really interesting, Paul, is actually these types of arrangements could even work with Medicaid and Medicare, because there's a state option where if this one rule is extended, that would allow HSA-like accounts that are funded by the government under Medicaid to be controlled by the patient, and then the patient can go and buy a direct primary care doctor. And so we're not working for anyone other than that patient, but that patient who is economically disadvantaged gets the purchasing power to go and buy a direct primary care doctor and get the concierge level care, but are doing it on Medicaid. And then Medicare also has something called an MSA, which is, again, like an HSA account, and it's funded by the government. So Medicare even has this capability. That one's already in law. The problem is it's because the legacy insurers wouldn't make a lot of money off of that product. There are very few offered in our state of Michigan. There's, as far as I'm aware, not a single insurer offering one of those products. But if, again, they clarified the HSA rule, then people could theoretically start using those immediately with Medicare for direct primary care. And the people who have the highest need, the elderly population, would be able to get the best care too. So highest need, best care, great match.
Yeah. And I think that's part of what this is all about, is giving people autonomy on not only their healthcare, but also on their healthcare spending. So like the autonomy on the healthcare is like, when we make healthcare affordable for folks, they start managing their diabetes and high blood pressure and other chronic medical conditions better, because they're not afraid to purchase the healthcare anymore, because it's a known cost, and they become in control of their condition, so to speak. And then on the financial side, it's like if you can self-direct your HSA funds and you don't have an employer selecting your healthcare plan for you, you can start to see what makes sense for you and your family on an individual basis and purchase the coverage that you need rather than the coverage that's purchased for you either through the government or through an employer. So I think it's a lot about autonomy is this conversation, and it's exciting to see that these things are possible just with the right sponsorship, right?
Yeah, we are so close. That's it. Sometimes it's so tantalizingly close, and yet, so far away. We just need a little more support, bipartisan support for this movement, and we could fix healthcare in the United States.
I love that, man.
So tantalizingly close.
Awesome, man. So if somebody wanted to help you guys out, what should they do?
I'd go to dpcaction.com. Check us out. Feel free to contribute. We'd love any contribution we can. And then, talk to your senators, talk to your congressmen. If you need specific points to address with them, I would encourage having those congressmen or senator talk to, the staff of Senator Cruz and see if they have any issues with that bill, if there's any accommodations that can be made to get something like this through. It would be game-changing for American healthcare.
Awesome, man. I think we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much, Dr. Chad Savage. Incredible work that you're doing with your team. And thank you for taking care of your patients and helping us take care of our patients in this DPC movement and this DPC model. And thank you, everybody, for watching today. If you want to find out more information, we're on startupdpc.com. We have other conversations like this where we take a deep dive on direct primary care and help doctors start and grow their practices. Thanks again, Dr. Savage.
Thanks, Paul. Good to see you, my friend.
Great to see you too, man. Take care.
Take it easy.